baby. We got a wild one for you this week.
Showbiz.
It's all about the showbiz.
We're talking about showbiz with writer, actor, director Alison Rich on the program today.
We get into sex talk.
We do.
We talk about what's the proper etiquette at a cumdump.
And we talk about making independent art and being stressed out on the side of the road.
Yeah. And then we also talk about cumdumps.
Okay. Well, we did that at the end for like a
And
little
there's
bit.
so much cum.
But we had a respectable industry chat.
Yeah.
About Harvard.
We
and
did.
Such.
Yeah.
The
We talked about
Conclave at
Harvard and conclaves and everything. But then we also talked about fucking
all right.
cum.
Goodbye.
Enjoy this week's episode.
Mom!
Hi, it's Big Dipper,
And Meatball.
and we want you all to check out Courtney Act's new show, R&R with Courtney Act.
Where she tackles the world's biggest issues with some amazing guests.
It's a new mom show, and it's all sponsored by Factor.
Get started at factormeals.com/Courtney50off and use code Courtney50off to get 50% off, plus free shipping on your first box.
When your first choice is a big old bus,
You turn around and boom, you end up with a sloppy seconds. Oh, diva. Our number is 213-536-9180. Our email is sloppysecondspod@gmail.com. Now on with the show. Hi, you sloppy juicy little you not so you darling welcome to Sloppy Second Big Dipper and be like Meatball, and that's Big Dipper.
hello, welcome back to the
Oh
show.
my goodness.
So happy to be here.
Are you? You said it in a weird way.
No, I'm very excited. You look regal and lovely. It's very Mrs. Roper.
It's our first time back in the studio.
Yeah, I'm trying to rope her in.
Yeah. You know pantomime?
Yeah, object work.
Oh.
You're in a box. Get out. Get out of the box.
I was actually a very good mimer in high school. I think I lost the...
What do they call it? The catch and release?
Sure. I mean, I don't know. Maybe our guest knows.
Yeah.
She's an actress.
I believe it. I know it to be true.
Do you know that to be true?
I do.
Did you also know that she's a comedian, an
Uh-huh.
actor, a
Uh-huh.
writer,
Uh-huh.
and director?
Yeah.
She does it all. Please welcome to the stage, Alison Rich.
Hello.
Hi.
Oh my gosh. Hi. Thank you for having me.
Thanks
And
for
welcome
being
to the
here.
pod.
What a pleasure.
A true joy. We're all in
Let's
a
all reach
room.
our You listeners
We-
don't know this, but we're in a room together, touching
Correct.
hands.
Touching hands, sharing thoughts. We were just talking about like when podcasts first began, when
Mhm.
YouTube channels first began.
Yes.
There's been like quite the evolution of like putting content out in the world in relation to technology.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Hard agree. Yeah. I mean, I remember when like Instagram stories started being
Yes.
like, I'll never do that. I'll
Oh,
never
yeah.
do that. That like crossed the line. No, thank you. In fact, I held out for like a year or two, and then a coworker of mine grabbed my phone and like took a picture of his face and posted it. And I was like, you've like broken the seal.
Oh, no.
But there's just like a curmudgeonly part of me that's like, I don't want to grow with whatever we're doing.
Right.
And it has hurt me because you have to keep up.
Yeah,
like, you know,
absolutely.
it's
I'm always amazed at the people, you know, there's a couple schools of content making, I
Yeah.
think, right?
Yale.
There's like the Yale,
Princeton.
Binghamton.
right? Syracuse.
Yes.
They're all the East Coast.
That's it. We named
Schools,
them.
and that's all the schools.
That's
Yeah.
it. They make content. Those are the schools.
Yeah.
But there's like, you know, the sort of what I call content farms, or like, you know, the people that just like, there are these accounts that just take other content that exists on the internet.
Right.
Like the accounts that just like chop up movies on TikTok.
Oh, love them.
Yeah.
I've never been more happy than watching a 15-part series to get to the end of the movie to find out that part 16 out of 16 isn't there.
Right.
They'll get you every
Oh,
time.
yeah. I have that with, I watch clips of Dr. Pimple Popper on TikTok.
Uh-huh.
And for whatever reason, this account only shows the before. So you have to then go to YouTube and be like, woman with growth inside nose.
We're the same.
Yeah.
This
and I
is
never
the most
understood.
relatable thing you've ever said.
Well, also, like you were saying about the stories, I never understood Instagram Reels, and they're like so
Oh,
big now, and
yeah.
it's like I don't get why it's like its own separate thing, and I don't understand why it's there, and I don't like making them.
All the Gen Zs have tuned out. At
Oh,
this
they're like,
point.
oh, old people chatting? See
Oh,
you
we're
later.
done. They're like,
Millennials,
Millennial
we're still in our
pause.
prime.
I feel like there's a lot of millennial chat that I've seen recently where people are like, oh, there's such a millennial. I was like, oh, I didn't know
But weren't we the
I know
same
we've been
way?
we've
replaced.
gotten there, though.
I don't remember ever saying Gen X in my life.
There
That's
you
true.
go.
You know what I'm saying? There's no it's like I do feel like they were skipped over, even though they were. I feel like the comedy idols that we grew up watching would be counted as Gen X, and yet never referred to them by that.
I think
you're
the
right.
generational conversation is a new one. I think it appeared with Gen Z, and then now we're like, oh,
Well,
boomer this and boomer that.
I feel like it appeared with millennial because, like, I don't
Oh, yeah,
know, were
that's
we like because of the millennial? I don't know why,
What'd
but
you do on Y2K?
I was at home with my parents, like
Okay.
a 13-year-old.
Hard brag.
And
Cool.
I did, when it turned to 2000, like hold my breath, close my eyes, be like, are we still alive? And then we were.
They really put the fear of God in us.
Yeah.
I remember my dad like changed the year on his computer to make sure
to check.
to make sure it didn't go 00 and then his computer just explode in our
He's
house.
like, where is all my oil money going to be at?
It's in the he hides it in the computer.
I did remember as a completely untech savvy kid being like, but even if the computers don't reset, why would then that mean everything else? Does it just mean your computer's off? Like, I didn't understand, how that led to like the stock market crashes, famine takes over, you know, like
That's what I'm saying. I don't think it ever would have done that because I remember it just hit and then everyone was like, all right, well, everything's still normal.
yeah.
What a day.
What a day.
Where were you during 9/11? No, never mind.
9/11, I was at an all-girls Catholic school, and I do remember we were like called into an auditorium, and they're like, "Does anyone's parent work in New York City?" Because it was on Long Island, and I was like, "Sometimes because my dad's a doctor, and he would sometimes go into a certain hospital in the city," and I just became so aware of. I was like, I don't know anything about the city, like in terms of like where the financial district was, you know.
Sure.
Because when you grow up in suburbia next to a cool place and your dad holds your hand into the city, I was like, if someone dropped me off in the city at that age, I would have just immediately died because I was like, I don't know, I'm sheltered.
I felt the same way. I grew up right outside of Chicago, and every time we went, it was just like, well, they're driving me and they're taking. I don't know anything
don't
about
pay
street
attention.
names.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
honestly, I had that experience in LA. The last time I had to change my phone, I like went to the Apple store and something was up with my Verizon because I'm still on a family plan. Sorry.
Of course.
And when
You're in a
they-
family.
Yes.
Makes sense.
And then
Duh.
when I left the Apple store, it was like 8:30 at night, and they're like, "Sorry, we couldn't hook up your service. You'll have to call Verizon or reach Verizon in the morning." So I was in downtown LA with a phone that didn't work, so no GPS, and I was like, "How do I get home?" Even having lived in LA 10 years, and I got there eventually, especially like downtown LA where there's like 7 like lane streets or whatever,
Yes.
where you're like anyone is a wrong turn
Yes.
into one way, you know. So
I
don't know
lived in
where
downtown
I am.
LA for like 3 years. And again, I had
Crazy.
one time my roommate got in the car with me and he goes, "Where are you going?" And I was like, I just kind of aim. And if I hit a street that I know, I'll turn right or left. And he goes, "We've passed our house twice." And I was like, oh, I didn't know.
I just kind of aim.
I didn't know where I was. I never knew where I was going. Now I know better.
I stand by it in that I'm like, there's only so much real estate in the brain.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
And if the computers can do this part, then I'm saving the space for Dr. Pimple Popper TikToks.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
That
Well-
said, if things fall apart, first to die.
Y2K.
Yeah,
Goodbye.
yeah.
You know, I think about this a lot as creative people. We have tons of skill when it comes to like, you know, the way things look or how they're written or the rhythm of a joke or like what works or what doesn't work. But like the practical skills in
No.
life, it is shocking.
Yeah. Especially my fiance. That's the first time I'm
Wow.
saying it. It's hard to drop that. I'm
Is
sorry.
that new information?
It's new. It's like 3 weeks ago.
Wow.
Bow, 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 bow.
I know. I feel very
That's a
basic.
big
being like,
ring.
yeah, he did. Hey, half of it's lab grown, so it's actually like
Wait.
cheap in a certain way.
What does that mean?
Lab grown diamonds?
You
How do
As
can
they-
opposed
get,
to like a like a
as opposed to like the blood diamonds or
Yeah.
whatever, they can grow in a lab a diamond that looks just like anything, but like true jewelry people are like, that's so it's questionable what the worth is, but it's cheaper and it looks nice.
And
and
it's
they
worth
can't
a lot
actually
in
tell
your
the
heart.
difference, really.
Yeah.
They're pretty identical.
Oh.
So
And I think
That's
the
like
diamond industry is probably only mad because they're like, God damn it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, people aren't digging in mines over in Africa anymore.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there's some level that it's like, I don't know, similar to AI where you're like, oh, you guys found a like simpler way to do it. I'm mad about that.
Right.
You know? I don't know. But anyway, all this is to say, my man is very good at the practical stuff. I didn't even know until dating him that at the gas station you can like put air in your tires.
Huh?
You know, like I was like, my tires are working fine. You know, like there's a lot that I didn't know.
There's a whole lot. But there's a lot that you do know.
Yeah.
You know so much about comedy. You know so much about like making cool stuff.
I try.
What inspired you to like work in this field?
Well, I have this memory that is probably half invented from when I was 9 of like discovering theater. The memory is that I was like watching TV and there was a documentary about kids on Broadway in a production of Big. And I was like, I have to do this, having no, like my family's not artsy. And I like came into the kitchen where my mom was loading the dishwasher, crying, being like, I have to be an actress. And she was like, okay. And then she started letting me like go to theater camps and this and that. And the interest just like never went away. But when I went to college, you know, because the original dream was like being on Broadway. And when I went to college, I was like, some people can really sing and dance. And like I can make, you know, like I was like, I can make faces and do dumb, unspecific voices. And so I was just always getting cast in the comedic side roles, which was fun. And so then I just was like, okay, I'm fully going comedy.
Right.
Though after college, I had a year where I would like, I was living at home on Long Island and I would like go to cattle call musical theater auditions while starting the UCB thing. And very quickly I was like, this musical theater thing I don't like. Success was like, oh, you would get cast in a regional production of like Kiss Me Kate in Rhode Island for $300. Whereas like the UCB world, like I remember one of the first classes I took was taught by Bobby Moynihan. And then the next thing you know, he's like on SNL. So I was like, seems like there's at least,
There's a path.
you know, some,
Wait,
yeah.
When you were in that moment, what musical was sort of like in the back of your head? Was it Kiss Me Kate?
You mean in
like just in your little fantasy of like, oh, when I get my starring role, it's Once Upon a Mattress.
I really loved like Sondheim. Like in college, I got to do a lot of fun musicals. Like I played like the beggar woman in Sweeney Todd, even though I wanted to play Mrs. Lovett, but I certainly didn't like look the type. And I would like one of my good friends got it, and she was much more of like a singer, but like that charactery. Or I remember seeing 25th Annual Putnam County Spelling Bee and being like, oh my God. Because that's really sketch comedy, you know. Yeah. And like, ironically enough, I first found success in the comedy world doing like musical improv, but then I blew out my voice doing it. I got like a nodule and they were like, you could have surgery, but you'll have to be silent for 2 months. And I was like, it's not happening. So I kind of like hung up my voice.
Wow.
You know, but
you know who I feel like I saw do musical improv in Chicago was A.D. Bryant. Like as part of a troupe, like when I was living there.
It's probably like Baby Wants Candy.
Yes,
yeah. Because they're
totally.
like the group that cycles through people. Yeah.
I don't know the Chicago.
I have a
scene.
little comedy lore question.
Okay.
So you went to Harvard.
Oh yeah.
And they have like some comedy writing magazine.
The Lampoon,
the Lampoon.
Yes.
So because there was like a whole plot line on the Sex Lives of College Girls, that TV show, about one of them wanting to like write for this magazine because it's a green light into the comedy world. What's the lore around the Lampoon? Like what is that?
Yeah, that actually factored in when I was in college because I came to Harvard not having heard of the Lampoon, but not really aware of like its significance. And I was a real theater kid. But then like my junior year, as I was starting to be like, no, I really want to go comedy. I was like, this Lampoon, like Conan O'Brien had gone, or like BJ Novak. And so the lore is that like it's a direct line to like major TV writing jobs, which is like true and not true. Like someone like Colin Jost, he did go from the Lampoon right to SNL and has like been there ever since. So there's certainly those examples. But then there are just as many people who like do it and then now they're like an accountant. You
Right.
know, like
Yeah.
and when you're a college student, you're like, this is the one way.
The one way.
And-
The one way.
There's a
J. Crew.
there's a castle at Harvard for the Lampoon, and it's like a quirky brick building that has a face on it that like shoots out green smoke. It's very like Harry Potter, but there, I will say,
It's the conclave.
Conclave.
yeah,
We have a
absolute
new
conclave.
comedian.
Yes,
Green
yes,
smoke.
yes. But and the process, it's kind of. I had a great experience at Harvard, but there are parts of it that are like super douchey, privileged. What you know, and so in the theater world, I didn't experience a ton of it, but like when my junior year, I was like, wait, I should look into this. I experienced just like basically, honestly, it went on to be a lot like when I was at SNL. You can tell the roots that SNL had to some extent in Lampoon because if you want to get on, also I'm talking so much.
No,
that's the.
It's an interview show.
But
You're
You want me to talk
okay.
about me?
Yes.
Boring.
But
Kill
so
me.
if you want to get on, you get like every semester, you basically can like try out for it. And they had meetings once or twice a week where you can show up and they let you into just this single like library room. And the Lampoon members are like sitting in grandiose chairs and the people trying to get on can only sit on the floor.
Stop.
Yes. And we're talking about I'm a 20-year-old and another 20-year-old is like, I get to sit because I'm already part of this thing. And you're
Right.
like,
This is
okay.
crazy.
Meanwhile,
Cool,
you're
cool,
like
cool.
in front of them in the cafeteria being like, got the
Yeah,
last slice of
and they'll like
pizza."
ignore you because they're like, we know that you're
This is how I run a
trying.
dressing room at a
Yes.
drag show.
Yes.
You can sit on the floor, little girl.
yes.
Little girl.
And so then basically you can come like once or twice a week and bring your writing and get notes from them because there's like 2 rounds or something where you submit like, I don't know, 5 comedic pieces and they decide like after the first round, they'll maybe like, I don't know, 50 to 100 people are trying to get on. After the first round, maybe they'll narrow it to like 20 people. And then there's another month of like working on these pieces, getting notes. And then they narrow that down. And I remember, I think I made it to the last round. And then the like 6 people that make it to the last round, they like basically haze one night and they like, or maybe I might be, but they like leave an envelope under your door and they're like, you're invited to come or whatever. And then they kind of harass you. I didn't experience anything like gross sexual harassing.
Right.
But
Spanking.
and then I didn't get on and I remember because, oh yeah, I tried 2 times because you could try both semesters every year, but up until senior. So I tried my junior fall, my junior spring. And the second time I made it to the end, but I didn't get on. And I was ready to jump off a building. Because it's that thing of like, I mean, I still experience this some now in my 30s, but I have more perspective. But you're like, that was my one shot.
Yeah.
That was my one shot. And these other 20-year-olds mostly, and this is like, we're talking whatever, 2008 or something. So it was like all straight dudes. And I was like,
Right.
they run this town. They know. And like, I was still
they do.
so, what's that?
I mean, they still do.
No, I know. But at least now we have an awareness of like, hey, that's like up and
Yeah.
other
Right, you
people.
were like-
but at the time I was like, Brian does know better.
Right.
You know, Brian, this other, like he's so much smarter than me, you know? And you're like, or like, I remember like loving like Adam Sandler movies. And now I look at and that, like, obviously he's like a genius, but like, you just look at Billy Madison so different when you're like, the teacher, Veronica Vaughn, is just a set of tits. Like, you know,
Yeah.
when you're like, you've grown up in this Kool-Aid of like, this is what we laugh at.
And also, you have so much work and life experience now to know that like 100 people saw that this teacher is only a set of tits and was like, approve.
Oh,
next,
100.
approve, you know?
Yes, this is. Yeah, and I remember emailing like a person that was on the Lampoon to be like, what if I delayed graduation and lived on campus but wasn't enrolled so I could apply again and then I'd start my senior year? And thankfully this one idiot 21-year-old named like Jared was like, don't do that. we don't think it's allowed, and also it's not worth it.
Right.
And I was
you're
like, okay, I want to, but I truly like was in my dorm for a week being like, why do I even, I guess I go be like a lawyer or something. And what's so funny now is like, I know, like Chris Schleicher was on, I don't know if you know him. He's like a very successful TV writer, and we were there at the same time, and like he was on it, and he has a great career, but it's also like, so do I, and so do so many of his peers that were there.
Right.
They don't do it at all. So
Yeah.
it's like maybe would have been cool, but is not the only thing. And the other thing is that I think later I got to go to some party there, or also remember you just hear stories about it where it is some of the worst part of that culture where like they have some party where they like break plates and they like priceless heirlooms and stuff like that, where they're just like, because we're rich idiots who are gonna run the world so we can destroy property. And you're like, this is gross. I don't want to glorify this,
Right.
Well, like
You
hindsight
like
is
the sound of
26.
that.
I was literally like, well, smashing plates doesn't sound terrible.
but it's
But
like
it's like priceless
we're
heirloom. Yeah, it's like
surrounded by
trying to, like,
riches,
Yeah.
and we're just gonna like take a on them because we know that we're like set for life,
But also, like, when you're that young, like that, your whole world is within the
Yeah.
college that you're at.
Yeah.
Like, the outside
Yeah.
world really doesn't matter until you're out in it and you're like, what was I thinking? I acted like an absolute insane person.
I think about that all the time. Like I went to theater school, and all the darlings of the theater department, like
Right.
none of them are actors.
Yeah.
And all the people who were like upon by the faculty and told like, you're not good enough, go back and keep trying. Like they're all on TV show. Like
Yes.
it's just so funny how inverted it can get.
Yeah. And like I think I once heard that the number like 125 or 150 is the perfect number for like a community of just like it's big enough and small enough that like a little king can be elected. Like it's the same thing with like
Lord
a
of Flies.
UCB or whatever, or a
Mhm.
cult where you're like, it's just the size. I
really
mean,
did
hey,
that.
I did
You
all
really
the
did
UCBs, but like it's the exact size for people to like decide, well, this is the cool group and this is the
Right.
out group, and we just like our little to do that, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
I feel like that can happen with 8 people.
And it does.
Yeah.
Oh, and it does.
Yeah.
All right, we'll take a break and we'll be right back after this.
And we're back!
So, not to just make this a whole biography, but I am fascinated by your career. You then went on to write at SNL.
Yeah.
And have like a successful Hollywood career and writing stuff. How long were you at SNL?
Just a season.
And what was that like? Insane?
It was like awesome and horrible. It was like both,
Yeah.
which I think is a common story for
Yeah.
many people there.
What you did a sketch comedy show later with
Yes.
our friend Nicole.
Yes.
That was on Fox?
Yes.
Was that also awful and amazing?
That was mostly amazing.
Oh,
It was
that's cool.
almost the opposite, where like it was very cuddly and like every idea is good. And I was like, we can be a little more right? Like this
You're not gonna
idea-
say yes to everything in this
Yeah,
room.
let's like,
Why don't we
it
cut
was
this one
very
real
nice.
quick?
But and like in that, I was, one of the stars, and it was really delightful. But just doing it as like, is this gonna last? Because for one, it was also like up against SNL, and you're like,
Yeah.
maybe let's not schedule it like at 11:30 on a Saturday.
Yeah, some of us like sketch comedy on Tuesday night.
Exactly.
Why not?
Yeah. But no, that was really delightful. The only thing beyond that is that it felt a little like being put in a boy band, where it's like we producers are putting these elements together as opposed to like an organic group.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you look at like Key and Peele, and you're like, that, like they were writing those sketches, they are their own thing.
Right.
Whereas we had like a separate writer's room, though you could get some of your own ideas on, but it was sort of like, I think this would have worked better if we were already a group
Yeah.
Sure.
putting forth our own voice,
Instead of like trying to create chemistry with people that you
Yes.
just met the day before.
Though, I mean, no, we were all like, I lived with, what is this? What am I missing?
Drama? What are you talking
I
about?
don't know.
Okay.
No, I want you to explain
Shouldn't
yourself.
have gone and become a theater kid. Gone for 2 months. Little nerd.
Nor.
Nerd.
Wow. I was a theater kid to start.
So was I.
And then
I mean, those
worked
were
in
your
the
options
clubs.
when you're a kid. It's not like
Yes.
I was a drag kid and
Now it is an option.
and I was a stand-up kid. Like it's like
Actually, I was
it's
a
theater.
finance kid.
Yeah. Oh, those finance kids are scary.
Yeah.
Well, they're gonna smash plates and run the world one day.
Exactly.
So you also have like YouTube content from a decade ago that
That's when it really gets good. You let it like sort of, it's like wine, you make a video a decade ago for it to pop off.
No, but
they got an Emmy in my house last night.
Yeah.
That's so
I've rewatched like The Body is Disgusting.
The Body
so
is
many
Disgusting
times.
is so good.
Thank you.
Hands, of course.
Hands
iconic.
Oh my
Hands
God.
is a hit, as you said.
Thank you so much.
Like that is the kind of thing that from the outside looking in, I assume you wrote.
Yeah.
You like were the engine behind all of that
Yes.
stuff.
I had a great collaborator in the director and his at the time girlfriend actually kind of like did the production design of making all the funny.
Oh,
So that
wow.
was a really lucky thing because now I do more of the part like I direct, and when you're and maybe you guys experience this, like if you have an idea and you're like just the actor or just the writer, like if you have the wrong director, editor, or designer,
Mhm.
you're like, this isn't what I envisioned.
Right.
And that it just like actually really lined up. But yeah, that was a really like I know when you make stuff, it's not often that like what's in your brain comes out as well as you
Mhm.
or
Yes.
better. And so
Sometimes
that was
better.
yeah.
Because I know for me, like that's the stuff I love. I love being able to like, oh, we take the idea, then we beat it out, we write it
Yeah.
out, then we make it, and we never have to like we never leave the chain of custody of the
Yes,
idea,
yes.
from start to
Yeah.
finish. And it's sort of rare in the larger industry that
Yeah.
that is the case unless you sort of walk in the room and sell your own show and you're like, I'm involved in all of it.
Yes.
Has that sort of work like inspired you to then, because you've now like written and directed films and like you do so much work as a director, what about being involved in all of it do you like?
It's just like you writing, directing, and acting, you can really be like, this is my thing. Because even, when I've been just acting on something, sometimes it's great, but sometimes you're like I remember I was like in an episode of Two Broke Girls, and I'd shot a couple scenes and then they cut it down to one, and like you have your family watching and they're like, we saw it for a second, and
Yeah.
you're like, oh, I didn't know that would happen. Or like the takes they pick, you're like,
Oh yeah.
not my best.
Or they always pick they're like, well, that's the one I did the
But they
exact
never-
line reading that the director made me
Right.
do. And
Oh,
you're
I
like,
wish the
oh.
director would tell me how to say stuff sometimes. I go back to theater school, you little nerd. No, I hate when they do that where they'll pick it like a terrible take of you, because I did a show like a couple years ago and all the takes were the worst ones, but it's the ones where I'm like hitting the mark exactly, and I was like, oh, they were just after.
Yes,
The
they
one
are.
mark, I was
they
like-
care about like the technical.
Yeah,
not,
and
like,
they were like,
but my
"You're just an
eyes were
object."
alive in
Yeah.
the other one.
I was like, I actually really delivered the line a little
I
bit
was
better.
completely out of frame. But my
I wasn't
eyes
out of
were
frame. I
alive.
wasn't. I can promise you that. I might have just been waving my hands around too much.
Yeah. No, so it's just like and the same thing like with writing, I'm sure like when you guys have been on the like if you've done the audition grind, you're like, this character's not that fun for me, or I'm not the best at it, or even like I feel like in maturing, I go like, it's okay if I'm like not the best actor or the most interesting looking or whatever, but I can go write a thing for myself that honestly, if this was just went wide and people were auditioning for, maybe I wouldn't get it. But I'm like, but I wrote it, so I get it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then directing is just like another level of that, of like, you then can control how it's edited and all this. And it's hard, but it's like, I feel like the only way to feel some control
Mhm.
in this dumbass biz.
It is pretty wild. Like there are some people we talk about Trisha Paytas a lot on
Love
the show.
Trish.
Okay.
You know
I'm
who Trisha is?
medium familiar.
Okay.
But she seems like a darling.
Well,
She's actually not. but-
Okay. Well,
But
her.
I respect her work ethic and the
Okay.
way that she creates content. But I do think that she might definitely be a nightmare human being.
Okay.
she has just been around forever.
Yeah, she was
That's
like,
also
at the
a strength.
beginning of YouTube.
Yeah.
So like what I often think about is like she was like, oh, I went to casting calls. Oh, I answered this thing for reality TV. I said that I could read really fast, and that got me on the Ellen show. I've been, she's just sort of like
Yes.
done
She tried
everything.
to get the Guinness Book of World Records for fastest reader, and they were like, "You're not reading."
Oh my God.
But she still went on Ellen and did it.
That is so funny.
So her goal from the outside, looking
Yeah.
in, dream guest, by the way, we'd love to have
Trisha,
her on the
call
show.
us.
Trish.
Trish!
Quit hanging out with the Rue girls.
Yeah. From the outside looking in, it seems like her goal is to just be in the spotlight and be entertaining.
Yep.
And just sort of, she has the stick-to-itiveness. She did YouTube, she did Vine, she pivots to Instagram,
Yes.
she's done OnlyFans.
She has live
Patreon,
shows now.
she has a
Wow.
podcast, she does
She
music
dances around.
videos.
The
She
security
just sort of,
guards. I've seen so many videos of people videotaping the security guards watching her because they don't understand how she has that big of an audience.
she like selling out huge theaters.
Incredible.
So
So
she's
Yeah.
up there and she's like, how's that? Like, she's just really bad.
Good for her. No, but that's its own like skill that will take her, far.
Right.
I don't quite think I have that, but I feel like
It wasn't-
Sorry,
Listen,
I
wasn't
know-
suggesting-
Right,
Wait, I
no,
wasn't
but I-
saying that you're the Trisha Paytas
yeah.
of the.
that's what you're saying. That's what you're getting at.
But that's what I was
But
saying.
She just will do anything.
But I
for
just
the
like I
spotlight.
do feel like to survive in this biz, you kind of got to be like, what are the? It's like talent's one thing, and there's only so much you can like. You can obviously keep working at your craft, but I try not to even like worry about it too much because like my talent is what it is. But being like, okay, what in my personality? Because I was a bit like I was like a straight A student, so I'm like I can write an email and like write a report and so that's like lent itself well to like indie filmmaking or this, but I would not have the Trisha thing, but she like, so what about you guys? Are you Trisha's or where were you going with this? I hijacked.
No, it's you're our
You're the
guest. I
interview.
wanted to hear it.
I
And
would say
hijacked it.
Meatball is a Trisha.
I'm a
Okay,
Trisha.
okay.
But also, I
And-
do write the emails.
Mm-hmm.
Chat, press a number
Hey,
2.
Put a
If
number
you-
2 in the chat if you
if
think
you
I'm answering
think-
those emails.
If you think
I
Meatball's
famously
writing emails.
don't answer emails.
Okay.
I'll get a
At
lot of
all.
them, and I just
Yes.
don't. Or
Yeah.
I'll read it and be like, "This sounds like a really good opportunity. I'm gonna get back to them later."
Never
And
Yeah.
I put the
And
phone
then
down,
goes
and then
out of
I
the head.
yeah.
Yep.
But you have found yourself in a lot of crazy places because you're like, I'll take that opportunity. I'm sort of
I'll blindly say yes to something and get there and be like, "Today we're gonna learn how to act." You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
I'm much more of a like, I'm gonna see the idea from start to finish and be in control of everything. Like
That's good.
I just we're in talks for a project, something that's
We love
happening.
talks.
Yes, but
Who,
I
we?
basically said on the phone with the person, I was like, I'm gonna be your worst nightmare unless you let me be a
Oh
collaborator.
yeah,
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
I told him
yeah.
that too. I was like, "I'm gonna hijack this part of it too."
And
Like,
also,
you're not
like,
gonna be able to.
you
get
need to like
Yes.
we're worth it, and we will make it better.
We'll talk. Well, let's be more vague.
But like, I was like, I don't do anything that I'm
Yeah.
not a producer on.
Yeah.
It's been like 10 years since I've worked on anything that I'm not like actively involved in
Yeah.
as a producer. So it gets hard.
Oh,
Yeah.
the fights we're gonna have on that set. That poor actual producer is gonna hate us.
Yeah.
No. I think we'll be.
I'm gonna
pleasant.
Trisha my way around that.
Wait,
and be like,
here's-
"Boys, out."
Out. Is that something she does?
No, that's
something.
I.
Okay.
Wait,
Okay.
so
As
you
Patricia.
you directed Meatball on a project recently, right?
Yes.
Yes, but it was
Okay.
also
Top 3
probably not-
nightmare moments of working with Meatball.
Oh no.
Late?
A total joy.
Oh, I was on time. Oh, we
A little
started
late. No,
a
she
little late
nodded.
because
She
because this
didn't- and
this
it
ran
didn't-
long. This ran long.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
No, but you were a joy. You were in prep ones.
But when me and Ryan hang out, it's kind of like we just get chat.
I remember having to give the note of like, okay, guys, like
So we're
Ryan
acting?
specifically, like you're doing a character, and she was just like kikiing.
I kept getting into the pattern, and she kept being like, "Okay, but remember, maybe act or like do
do
a
the
face
show.
or like do the
Yeah,
show
yeah.
and like." And
'Cause
then
Ryan's
I was like, "Wait, am
playing-
I acting?" And you were like, "I don't know."
We'll get what we get.
We'll get what we get.
Yeah.
honestly.
That episode
But yeah,
will be bad.
Ryan is in like full prosthetics playing like a 60-year-old like entertainment like male Joan Rivers.
Right.
And so she's in this crazy unattractive makeup, I'll say it.
Yeah.
Dipper
But being
would suck
like,
it.
yeah. But being
That's
like,
my
Meatball! You know, like
And I was like, "What about that guy that lives on our street?"
Oh my
It's
god.
like
you
bad.
guys love to talk about that.
So
It
you'll
was
figure
such a- No,
something out to
we
do with
got
that
it. We got
footage.
it.
We got it. All right,
it.
we're gonna take another break. We'll be right back.